Hello and welcome to the next episode here at Black Dirt Cycles. I'm going to start off with a bit of an unboxing. Basically, what I've got inside here is a load of parts that I've ordered from DefCat. If you can find him on Instagram, I'll put a link underneath the video in the comments bit. You should find a link to his Instagram page and things like that. Basically, he's been helping me out sourcing parts that I'm going to be needing to get this build done, basically. Yeah. So, without further ado, let's have a... Actually, no, before we do dive in, I don't know if any of you follow last week of July, but they've just recently posted up a picture of some dude doing a wheelie on a bike pretty similar. In fact, I'll put the picture up after this so you can see it, and why not go give them a follow as well? Always cool. It's all about spreading the love, isn't it? So, inside the box, what have we got? Oh, cool. Cool, I like that. It says good stuff. In fact, let me show it to this one here. Look at that. Good stuff. And I'm sure there is plenty of good stuff inside. So what have we got? This is just an Allen bolt set that holds the gearbox inside the engine. We've got a pinion bearing. There's 4 different sizes. There's green, there's red, white, grey. So the colours basically denote what size they are. And there's certain things that are stamped on the engine, as well as measuring, which helps you decide which pinion bearing that you need. Here we go, here's the last one, and that's blue. So basically there's a graph, and yeah, so it depends on the size of the internal and the external races basically, but there's things that are stamped onto the case as well as onto the crank, which kind of put you in a ballpark figure, and then it's just fine measuring just to make sure that you've got the right one for that. So yeah, what we got here, XL kit. Oh, okay, right. So these are main bearings, or what I call the bottom end, big end, whatever you want to call it. So basically these are a stack of 3 roller bearings that go in the bottom of the conrods basically, on the pin, which is kind of over there on the bench. But yeah, I like the way they're in this plastic tube here. And then basically what that allows you to do is drop it over and then push, and all the bearings go on and stay together, because if you took this apart, basically they're just going to go everywhere. They fall out and they run all over the bench. So yeah, smart. I think this is what they call the 5th gear bearing. So this is a large bearing that goes gets pressed into the case, yeah, and it's where the gearbox comes out, I do believe. 5th gear bearing is what it's referred to as. Timken tapered roller bearings. Ooh, that's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it? So what have we got in here? Oh, okay, cool, yeah. So this is when the crank gets pushed back in. You have an inner and an outer. Yeah, so you have a bearing set. So one of these gets pressed onto the actual, onto the flywheel shaft. The 2 races, they go into the case. And as you can see, they've got this spacer that goes in the middle. And if you notice, it's got an opening here. And in your case, there's an oil gallery at the very top, which allows the oil to drain in. You need to get it so that the hole sits in the middle of these before you push the 2 races in. So this ends up basically sandwiched between, like so, making sure that this gap here is at the top for oil to drain in. It comes with a spacer, and there's about 3 or 4 other sizes. In fact, there's probably more than that. And what you have to do is, when you press the flywheel back into the case, this spacer has to be in the middle, and then you check the end plate, or the float, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's like 0.0001 to 0.0005 is how much end play you're allowed. It's somewhere around there anyway. It's minute. but it's through playing about with these shims that you get that right amount of end float. So I'm assuming that somewhere in this bag there's more of those shims which allow us, see if I can get that back together. Cool, put that in the bag. Now my hands are all greasy, great. Cool. So yeah, see, look, this is going into some more of those. Ooh, get it open. Yeah, so some different sizes. As much as they look the same, there's only like thousandths of an inch difference between these. What's this? Large circlet to hold that 5th gear bearing in the case. So that's cool. More spacers to go between that Timkin bearing. Another spacer, because like I said, there's quite a few of them, and it's not until you actually get them pressed in that you know exactly which one it is that you need. What have we got here? Oh, okay, yeah, cool. I don't know why they're in separate wrappers, but these are the thrust washers. These go inside the crank, so once you put the main pin back in, these go either side. These are like a bronzy type material, and you need to remember that the bronze goes with aluminium cages, so the cage of these bearings is going to be aluminium, which goes against the bronze thrust washers. Earlier models, it was steel on steel, so they would have had a steel thrust washer, and the cage of the bearings would have been made out of steel, so something worth bearing in mind. But yeah, you need 2 of those, one for each side of the flywheel. This is probably going to be the first job that you'll see done, is them going to be going in. And oh yeah, it's just another spacer that goes between the Timkin. Like I say, there's a lot of them, but we need them so that we can get that end float set just perfect. Yeah, I do love that bag. It's such a cool way of wrapping up parts. Good stuff. It certainly is. Let's just get rid of this. Okay, what's this here? These protective chips are made from potato starch. Okay. Based on a renewable source, they dissolve in water. Oh, that's cool. So basically they can just be put in a sink, filled with water, and they would wash away. So they'd go into landfill and becoming just general waste. Oh, and they can go on your compost bin as well. Cool. You know, being able to recycle things, that's always cool. So yeah. We've got more stuff in here. I don't know why I did that, I've got to clean it all up. Complete engine gasket set. So I know that not every gasket in this kit is actually going to be needed. I do believe this covers from 91 to 2003. It covers the 883 as well as the 1200. So like I say, there's going to be some bits in there that we do need, and there's also going to be some bits in there that we don't need. But tell you what, there's some good parts there to get started. Definitely on the bottom end rebuild. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've ordered. So, I know I just made a mess, but I'll get these bits cleared up, get it put away, and we'll get started, I suppose. Start building a bike, or an engine at least. The bike will come later, but yeah. Cool. Let's get this cleared up and see you in a second. So what we've done so far is, you see in the video, we've cleaned this up, we've scrubbed it within an inch of its life, and this definitely looks 100 times better than what it did when it first came in here. I can't lie, there's still a little bit of pitting around the edge there, but I can't remove pitting. It's there, it's eating into the metal, but I have scrubbed out all the rust, and I'm happy that once this goes inside the engine and it gets coated in oil, that it's just not going to rust anymore. So this is going to be perfectly fine. Stripped pretty much every component off other than those that need to be on there. So we still have the pinion bearing race on there, but we also still have this Timkin race on there. So the first thing we're going to be doing is just removing this Timkin bearing inner race. And the reason the inner race is left on there is because when I tried pulling it off before in the strip down, it actually broke off. The outer cage and the rollers, they went everywhere. So I'm hoping that with this puller, I'm going to be able to pull, oh no, not like that, I'm actually going to be able to pull this this inner race off. A bit fiddly, but here we go. Nope. Keeps slipping off, it's only a very small lip just on the underside of this. So where are we? I think somewhere around about there. Ah, there we go. Whew. That is off. Get rid of those off the bench. Yep, so there's that bearing. Give that a little bit of a wipe. Cool. Okay, when it comes to truing this up, we need to have our dial indicator resting on this face here, as well as on this inner race here too. Thrust washers have already been removed out of there, and these are just held in with these 4 dimples here. And what they do is, as they apply these dimples, which is just done with a centre punch, as they knock it in, what happens is it burrs the metal just over enough, and it kind of grips the thrust washer on 4 points, if you like. So it ends up sort of gripping it like how those 4 fingers are holding it there, like so. So basically, I did make a tool which should fit over the pin, go down, you tighten the nut up, and then you'd be able to do the 4 punches, and it would put them right on the edge. I made a punch that went with it, but unfortunately I can't find the punch anymore. So I'm just going to have to be real careful and just use my normal centre punch out the toolbox and hope that does the job. But if you look, you will see that it's not been sharpened to a point. It needs to be a dull centre punch, and this is so that it pushes into the metal and doesn't cut into the metal. If it cuts into the metal, it can create burrs around the edge, and then once you've put the conrods on that back in and put that bearing set up, it's got more chances of catching and then getting swarf into the bottom of the engine. So as you can see as well, over here I've got a parts washer, and in there I've got the conrods, I've got the pin, and I've also got the 2 nuts that secure it down. So I like to make sure everything's going to be clean, spick and span before it goes back in. So as you can see, I've already had it on earlier on so that the fluid actually heats up. So I'm just going to set this now. Where are we? 30, 20 minutes, and then yeah, once these are done, we'll be able to take them out, dry them off, and start assembling things back together. So cool, see you in a bit. So that's that done. Right, so I'll just leave those sitting in there for a second. like I said, the first thing I'm going to do now is get these thrust washers put back into the recesses. So I'm going to use the jig, the same jig as what I used when I took the flywheel apart, but because it's all because everything's clean now, and this is just a dirty old brake disc, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to apply some type of protection. The reason I've cut that hole in the middle is so now what I can do is pass it, and that centre can drop down through the hole. Now, one of the things I have been told to do is basically just to put a very thin smear of blue thread lock just on the inside of that, but I am going to do just tiniest of little dots. 4 little dots probably, just to hold that in place, as well as doing the centre punches. So here we have the new thrust washer, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of difference, mainly in colour, but you can see just around the edge here there are some signs of wear and things like that, so they definitely needed changing. Four little dots. Now those 4 original centre punches are actually pretty much holding it where it should be, but just to play safe I'm going to add 4 more. So you need to be close to the edge so that it's enough to hold it. So I'm just now going to go between all the points that are already there. Perfect. I'm happy with that. So, trying to lift it off wrong there. Just take this off. So as you can see, we've just put 4 new indentations that hold that perfectly in place. Cool. Alright, let's put that to the side. And let's do the other one too. Cool. Those at the front. Let's just push this down to the side for a second. Put that down there, out of the way. Let's go over to the tank. Get the bits that we need out. We have the actual main pin, the con rods in there too. Magic. Put the 2 bolts in there. So let's get this pin set up first. Dried off. So this pin actually has a keyway that should get pressed into it. It's a little bit stiff though. Okay, cool. That's definitely in there. Now, on the inside of this particular side, this also has the keyway cut in it to receive the locating pin. Just round from it, so perfectly in line with the centre here, inside that bore is a hole that's drilled down and through, and then it comes out the center here, and this is your oil passage. So oil gets fed through here, it comes up, it comes through this hole here, out here, and then is fed through to your bottom end bearings. I've heard of people saying about putting a little bit of Loctite around this surface here, but to be honest, you're risking getting it in that hole, and it's something that I'm not a fan of. I'll put some on the ends, yes, but I will not be putting any on this mating surface. Before you put any Loctite on this, you need to make sure that all the surfaces are good, clean and dry, otherwise it's just not going to work. Now, I know I've said I'm going to put Loctite on it, but I can't actually torque these up yet. I'm going to have to do this basically when I put it in the press and get these things perfectly aligned. So all I'm going to do for now is just put the bolt on so that it holds it, or the nut on, sorry, put the nut on so that it just holds it in position. I'll put a little bit of tension onto it, but I won't do it up to its full torque settings yet. Not until I'm at work and able to secure it in the jig. So we'll get that done up to the full torque once that is good and ready, once it's all lined up. So I think now, if I bring this back, put the lid on that, move that away, bring my amazing stand back into play. Right, the next job is going to be fitting these bad boys. You need to be careful because once they come out of it, I'm not sure exactly how this tube comes apart. So I am learning all about this exactly the same time as what you are too. So that looks scary, doesn't it? Oh no, one's gone. What have I done? Ah, they're all falling apart. Okay, so I cut the camera for a little while there simply because this was taking so much time and I was worried about how much memory card I had left in the camera. What a job that was. I would not wish that on my worst enemy, but we are done, fortunately. So as I'm putting this together, I'm just going to be using a little bit of this Lucas assembly oil. Looks like it needs the top cutting off. What did I do with that knife? So here we go. Should be nice and thick. Basically we just do not want this engine starting up dry. So if we can get some nice assembly lube on now, get it spread round, we're giving this engine a fighting chance when we first fire it up. Ah, there we go. Cool. Let's smear that around. Careful not to drop them again. Okay. So we should now be able to turn that over like so, and look at that, it's done. Right, finally. Next we can move on to putting the con rods back on. sure these are nice and dry. All the degreaser. Before I cleaned these, I already checked all the races and they're still perfectly fine, so there's no need to change them at all. No signs of wear. It's all dry off. They already had a scrub in the parts washer, but just that final blitz in the ultrasonic cleaner just got into all the little nooks and crannies and just made them look that little bit better. So the way Harley Davidson have made these two conrods is quite unique to their just to their own design, if you like. There's not many engines that have this inline type system. I did hear a rumour once that Harley had patented it. Whether that's actually true or not, I do not know. But one thing you want to be careful of when you're putting this rod, which is the inner rod, inside this rod, which they call the fork. I think they call this one the spade and this one the fork. What you need to be careful of is at the bottom here, if you follow this rib down, it stays nice and thick through this part here. But if you turn it over to that side, it fins just at the very bottom here. Where it fins, that's the bit that goes inside that conrod there. So cool, what we'll do, let's get a little bit of lube. Cool. Oh, look at that. Ugh. Looks like glue more than assembly lube, doesn't it? Yep. Some kind of snot or something. Oh, it's dripping out everywhere. Right. So like I say, just make sure these two bits go together perfectly. And then you should be able to just slide those over. Making sure each one lines up. Oh, look at, there it goes. All the way down. Beautiful. Wipe that excess off there simply because I need to bolt this down and I don't really want lubricant to be in that race there on that mating surface. Now we can offer up the other side. And that should drop down over that pin. Oh, perfectly. So like I say, I'm not torquing these up just yet, because what I'm going to do is tomorrow morning I'm going to take this with me into work, where I've got a nice large press. And what I can do with the press is I can actually get these two halves perfectly aligned. So let me just nip this up a little bit and I'll show you what I mean by getting them perfectly aligned. I mean, they're not going to be far off now. Okay, and I'll also be able to put a little bit of Loctite. So, if I just grab my straight edge, or my square, sorry, my set square, what I'm going to be looking for is these being perfectly aligned all the way around. And to be honest, at a quick glance, that isn't looking too bad. If I took that out, I might be able to get a bit of a better view. But that isn't looking too bad at all at a quick glance. But what I'll be able to do in the press, let's take this away, remove that totally. Down now. Whoopsie daisy. So the press that I'm going to be using at work has got two rails that go across. By sitting these two halves into the rails, I'll probably position them with the pin facing towards me and protect the conrods. So they'll sit in the rails and that will nearly line them up just through the two rails that way. I'll then put something on top, maybe a bit of angle iron or something like that, again that's got 2 points, apply a little bit of pressure, and what that pressure is going to do is it's going to push these exactly where they need to be. I'll take the torque wrench and this, what size is it again? 1 5/16" socket with me. I'll quickly whip the nut off, a little bit of Loctite on there, a little bit of red Loctite, and then I'll be able to do these up to the correct torque settings, and then these will be perfectly in line. Then after that, the next job is we need to make sure that these two spindles are perfectly aligned on this pin here that goes through the bottom of the rod. So this is going to mean setting it up in the lathe using the dial indicator, and we have to get these within 0.0001 of an inch. I think that's a thousandths, or what they in the States I think they call it a mil. But yeah, and then after all that, then we'll be able to put the new bearings on, get it pressed into the case, and start working out what spacers have got to go in there. Okay, so by holding the flywheel with this top ram, straight away that gets these two halves perfectly in line. This side I've already torqued up, 4 dots of red Loctite, which I'm just using here, some thread locker. I've just applied 4 dots on that side. Got the torque wrench set up. Don't know if I can do this one-handed because, like I said earlier, I'm having to hide away in the stores at work and do this on my own, on my camera. So let's just see if I can get it done or not. So sorry about the jiggly image. That pulls up tight. Wow. Let me see if I can put this camera down actually, so it sets up and film. That might just work. At least you can still see the nut there anyway. Bloody hell. That is tight. So it says you need to do this up to between 150 to 180. Let's work down and see what we're at so far. Let's try that. So that was at 114. Let's wind it up. 129. Let's try that. Yeah, that's fine. Right. Okay, we're getting there. That was 144. Let's go for 151. Okay. One more turn. About there. And there we go. I don't know how much of that you did get to see, but both nuts now torqued up. A little bit of play in the bottom of the rods like there should be. Say, with this pressure applied on the top here, this puts us perfectly aligned in what they call the C axis. So both of these, if you put a straight edge across there, it would touch all the way across and all the way around as well. You're best off doing it with a pin at this point 90 degrees to the angle that you're pressing down, simply because you're trying to bring both of these plates in line in this direction. If you had the pin at the top, it would be a smaller movement and you've probably still got a chance of it being out of line. So by either having the pin here or at 180 degrees away this side, it then just allows you to bring those plates perfectly in line that way and that way. Now all we need to do is just make sure that they're perfectly aligned this way. We'll do that back at home though, it'll be easier.